Ridgecrest Christian Conference Center was established in 1907 and is owned and operated by Lifeway Christian Resources of the Southern Baptist Convention. It's nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just outside of Asheville. For the past 100 years, Ridgecrest has hosted millions of guests, mostly through camps and retreats for young people and adults alike, as they come to this beautiful part of God's creation, seeking to grow closer to Jesus Christ. Jim Henry was one of those guests who was introduced to Ridgecrest at a very early age.
Our church took a group to Ridgecrest one summer. Well, I never had hardly been outside of Nashville, except to my grandparents or when we lived in Pennsylvania, so they were going to go to North Carolina. So they got a busload, had the church bus, and so we took off for Ridgecrest, and I saw the mountains. You know, the first time I see these gorgeous mountains, and I mean, I was exhilarated by what I was seeing and hearing the singing and the preaching, and I didn't know there was that many Christians together at one place. You know, and I came back, and I remember they asked me on Sunday to stand up in front of the church and tell about going to Ridgecrest. So I got up, I don't remember what I said, except I was enthusiastic about it, about going to Ridgecrest. Well, then not too long after I got a little bit older, I was asked to work up there by some people that worked at Lifeway, or the Sunday School Board, to work up there as a helper. So I went up there and worked in the summertime, all summer long, working in the media with cameras and things like that. And
Can you believe that?
I know it's unbelievable now, but at that time I kept up with it. I mean, I got splice film and the whole thing edited. I ran the projectors for the big meetings and the service for the teachers and all. It was a great experience. And then I did that another summer. So I had 2 summers that I got to work at Ridgecrest as a staffer. And at one time, though I wasn't officially on the staff, I was the youngest staffer up there, but I was working in a special venue, and so they let me work on that. And I met some great Christians. I heard great preachers, great singing, just seeing the family of God from all over the country come together. And it impacts your life, and you hear the teaching and all. So I'd be in rooms where missionaries would come and preachers would come, and I'd be running the film and all, but I'd hearing and seeing all this going on spiritually. And they'd have campfire services for the staff, and a guy that was our manager for the staff was named Daddy Weeks, and he'd read 1 Corinthians 13 every staff meeting. And then he'd have somebody else maybe read it, if a staffer was from Japan or someone, read it in the Japanese language. Or he'd read it in a different version. So 1 Corinthians 13 was kind of burned into my life through those staff meetings. And so it had a tremendous impact on my life spiritually. And then later, I was invited to go back up there, and Jeanette and I right after we got married, to work in that same area in media. And she worked in the library division. I worked with the projectors and things, and we got to spend our first summer together as husband and wife working at Ridgecrest. Mm-hmm. And then a few years later, several years later in fact, from about 1960 to about 1970 or 71 or somewhere in there, I was invited to be one of the speakers at one of the conferences, and that was my first time to go back. And so here I was getting to preach and teach at a place that I'd grown up with, and it was an awesome thing for me that the Lord gave me that opportunity to preach at a place that was so dear to me.
Brother Jim, as we just saw in the video, Ridgecrest has always been a special place to you. You were there as a young man. I know your children have been there, and even your grandchildren have been there on many occasions for summer camp. Many people across the Southern Baptist Convention know about Ridgecrest. It dates back to 1907, and literally thousands of people have been there. And so many people who have chosen to follow Christ have made that decision right at Ridgecrest. Through the years, Ridgecrest has grown. It's a great facility, just a wonderful conference center today, covering about 1,300 acres. And most recently, a brand new inn has been built there, the Mountain Laurel Inn. And in the Mountain Laurel Inn is a beautiful auditorium, and it's an auditorium that's considered to be state-of-the-art. It has the latest equipment for audio-visual presentation. It's just going to be a place that will serve many people in years to come. Brother Jim, because the members of First Baptist Church love you so much, and because you love us, and because you love the Lord Jesus Christ, we secured the naming opportunity of that auditorium at the Mountain Laurel Inn. And now and forevermore, it will be known as the Dr. James B. Henry Auditorium.